On the Wake Up Radio presents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and now OTW2. That's OTW2. Baby Fodier to Sister Vanessa. Greetings to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. Peace to Sister Nina. Greetings to Igwe Heshima. And that looks like everyone thus far. So, y'all can't hear me? You can't hear me? Sister says I'm low. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Interesting. Hold on. Check my connection. Oh my. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Can y'all hear me now? Okay. I think we got that cleared up. Just had to change the connection. Let's see. Oh, Brother Patrick came in while I was tending to those technical issues. Peace and Black power to you, family. Sincere Supreme. Greetings to you. BB for ODA, man, says, there you go. All right, good. All right, Sis Vanessa says, much better. All right, cool. All right, that's good. Oh, man. So, quickly, I got some announcements. Yeah, I got some announcements. So, as of right now, and y'all know how everything in the world is right now, everything is tentative. But as of right now, we are on schedule for Dr. Frances Cress Welsing Day to be on the 20th of March, so approximately 3 weeks away. And we will be live streaming that. It'll be a hybrid event, as they call it, which means in person and live stream. We'll be live streaming that. I'll be doing the Death and Rebirth of the Godless Black Woman. It's a lecture I've only done once before. In the midst of updating it now, because I first did it maybe 2 years ago. You know, time is weird with the whole COVID thing because a whole year passed by with almost nothing happening. So yeah, that's going to happen. You know, unless something unforeseen happens. Excuse me, getting tongue tied. I actually ordered the flyer, but I did not have the complete information, so that's why the flyer's not out. The flyer should be out Monday, and I will put the flyer up on Twitter and Facebook. And speaking of Twitter and Facebook, I do not even have the Twitter and Facebook up. And there we go. All right. My mother would like to say now we're cooking with gas. And also, what else I had another announcement. But anyway, make sure if you're not following the Instagram's at dc.radical, the numeral 1. The Twitter is DC_radical_ONE. And the Cash App, if you would so oblige, is $ DC Radical 1. And of course, this is the YouTube, capital D, small c, Radical 1. Now that we got that out of the way, the inspiration for this show, quickly. The inspiration for this show was I did a extremely unscientific survey, a poll, if you will. And I asked people on Instagram, what is the number one problem in the black community? And then I asked people, what is the number one problem in the black conscious community? Expecting two different answers. Some of you, if you saw it, because I put it on the story page, I didn't put it on the actual page, or I didn't post it, or however they said. You know what I mean. And I got a lot of interesting answers, and I'm gonna go through some of the answers that people had. But it was one thing I noticed, and I didn't notice it till after I looked at everybody's answers. I commented on their answers. Peace, brother Dawood. And and I went about it there. And then later, like maybe the next day or whatever, it dawned on me that something was not stated as a problem. And if you've seen the thumbnail that I use for this discussion, then you have a hint. So I'm gonna go through these somewhat quickly. Now, I mean, this is focus of the show, so I don't have to go through them quickly. I will go through them. How about that? And then we will discuss them, and then we will discuss what was missing, in my opinion. Now, BB48 man said the number one problem in the black community is our unerring capacity to subscribe to the wrong thing. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Says whether that be faith in politics, religiosity, feminism, or universalism, the idea that all people are the same. Brother, you got a point there. Greetings to Sister Shaniqua. Says, where do you find the thumbnail? The thumbnail was up, but you won't see it now because we're live. But on my Instagram, you can see it. You can see the thumbnail on my Instagram. Actually, I wasn't even thinking about that. And Sincere Supreme says the number one problem in the black community is the lack of respect and love we have for ourselves and one another. Definitely on the list. So, and I just pulled these up off the phone. The first one that came up was systemic white supremacy. And I think the person that put that is actually in the chat. Again, this is not something we can argue with. The problem on the planet is that our enemies exist. No one can debate that. Whether Yurugu, Chi Wang Lo, who now is claiming that we're doing something against him. I don't see a lot of brothers with smoke for Chi Wang Lo. I mean, people still going to the carryout, so I don't understand what the problem is. But whatever the case may be, maybe that's a West Coast thing. The sand crackers, I like to say, they are a problem. Everybody, we got smoke for everybody. So without a doubt, that's a problem. But it's not really a problem in the black community as so much it is a problem for the black community. So small difference there, but definitely a problem that we're gonna have to deal with one way or another. As Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad said, you gonna have to deal with this cracker. And of course the hats, that goes without saying. I mean, the hats are so much of a problem that if everybody could agree that the hats are the problem, then maybe you might be able to come to some reasonable discussion on dividing of resources without them in play. But it's easy. Once said a long time ago, easier said than done, right? The next one was, we are not self-sufficient like other groups. Again, cannot argue with this. We are not self-sufficient like other groups. Us not being self-sufficient like other groups actually goes to Brother Sincere's point, because Amos Wilson said, and I don't want to butcher the quote. So in essence, what Amos Wilson said, because I can't remember the exact quote, that economics is really about the relationships between people. And so you can't be economically self-sufficient or self-sufficient in any other capacity if black people don't like each other. And so that really encompasses the whole thing there. So I saw that. I was like, yeah, okay. That is I can't argue with that. Like all of that. This is the thing. All of the answers that people gave were relevant and on point. There was no as white people like to say, there were no wrong answers. There really were no wrong answers. Um I'm trying to think. It says, I don't know if it's the biggest, but we are not on code. Again, that goes without saying. And my response was absolutely that's a problem, but most people don't even know what that means. So both things are a problem. One, we're not on code, but two, that we don't even understand that there is a code, what it is, and how to apply it. Two sides of the same coin. And I think the person that put that in is actually in the chat too. But you don't have to say who you are. Next was somebody said, not identifying our enemy and treating them as such. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. At the time I saw this, that was my favorite answer. Y'all know why. You seen the Africa versus everybody lecture part one. You will get to see part two eventually. So you understand why that's my favorite one. But there were more. And then somebody just said division. Again, you can't argue. You can't argue with any of these points. Division is the problem. Black people being divided, and this, weirdly enough, I think kind of comes closest to what I was thinking, right? And I'm gonna go through a few more, and then I'm gonna ask you all what is the thing missing out of everything that's been said so far. Uh, Somebody else said unity, which is the same thing. Somebody else said lack of economic independence, which is similar to what someone else says. And then said, and then somebody, they came like totally different from everybody else. And I was like, I just had to pause and think about it. And he was like, sisters always half naked, like nudity symbolizes blackness. Naked queen syndrome. That's what he said. And I just paused. I mean, yeah, it's a problem, but it's not the problem. And I said, it sounds like a symptom of a bigger problem. I think I understand what he was saying. And if he's saying what I think he's saying, it is absolutely a problem. Our, our women's embrace, and it's not just our women, because I actually hear other men of other races complain about it, but the embrace of feminism and the embrace of liberal sexuality, excuse me, within the feminism is definitely a problem. And that kind of leads to what I think is the problem. Uh, then another brother said something. I'll bypass that one because then I asked him to elaborate. Then he went way deeper into that. So I'm going to bypass that. Somebody else said lack of unity. Then somebody else said gender role reversal. And I said, yeah, gender confusion, definite problem, no question. I mean, that we talk about that all the time. So you know how big a problem it is. Literally, straight black pride was part of the founding was to combat this, and it was nowhere near as bad as it is now. And then somebody says trust of white allies, which speaks for itself. And then somebody said integrated minds, and then somebody said religion. So as we see, some of the answers are starting to double up. Then somebody said lack of identity. And then basically, and then this was on time too. It was one more. Somebody said lack of critical thinking, and I gave them a quote that somebody had gave me a younger brother, but a really wise brother. Is really was really grounded. I lost contact with that brother. He moved out the city. I hope he's doing well. But he said, "The life of the oppressed is the life of the unthinking." And I thought that was just profound. You said that? Oh, you said it's had static with a stop. Okay. And I just I've always found that quote so profound when I thought about it because it's true. Oppressed people if they, in order for them to continue to be oppressed, have to think about things other than that, or else if they do, then resistance will build up. But in order to stay oppressed, you know, um, you can't think about it. You have to think about other stuff. You have to think about having fun and have to think about entertainment and things like that, you know, or else the oppression will create depression, which will either lead to self suicide or revolution. Um, Brother Dawood says no personal accountability for our actions. If you know the system is rigged against us, then why do we continue to make decisions that make us more vulnerable to a biased economic justice system? Because a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people actually want to believe that the system is rigged. People want to believe in what another gentleman who shall not be named said, but I'm gonna steal his quote. Want to believe in the illusion of inclusion. Um, and as long as things are held out there, that carrot is held out in front of our people, they will continue to go along, even if it means falling over the cliff. Now, I read all those, and I know it was a lot, and I added my own 2 cents to it, so it was even more. But what was missing from that discussion out of all those things I read, which were all great answers, by the way, they were all great answers. But one thing in particular was not addressed, um, either directly or indirectly. Now we had confusion. Yeah, we had confusion, brother. That was already said. Um, so I'll give y'all a few minutes to think, and it should be obvious. It, it should be real obvious. But then again, it wasn't as obvious to me immediately. I looked at it and I just thought everybody had great answers and was trying to make sure I responded to everyone. And then, like I said, the next day I asked the question. Oh yeah, I forgot I did. I forgot I did ask this question already. But nobody actually, I think one person answered when I asked the question of what was missing. Sister Nina says racism, white supremacy. Nope, we covered that. That was the first thing. That was the first thing that was said. Man, now come on. I pride myself on having the most intelligent audience on YouTube. So I'll be disappointed if y'all don't get this. Shout out to our wonderful producer for putting the links in the chat. Is OT okay? The OTW2 link is in the chat, and yeah, I'm going to once I get up and running, I will be putting some content over there. So if you haven't signed up to OTW2, our wonderful producer here, that is her platform. You know, I I guess I can get away with being a small channel and advertise other people's platform, or at least tell you about it. Not advertising for it. It's not a commercial. Brother say religion. Nope. We covered religion. We covered religion. Nope. Wow, this is crazy. Because then once I say it, then I'm gonna ask you all. Be like, no, am I wrong? It's not a big deal. I give y'all. I'll give y'all 2 more minutes because see, everybody's thinking like I was thinking, and everybody missed it. But the thumbnail gives it away so obviously. It gives it away so obviously. You know, those of you that follow me on Instagram, you can just go back and look and be like, what he got up here? And this was crazy. I think we're so used to seeing it that we can't see it or we don't see it as a problem. That's how interesting this is. You know. And maybe the way I posted the thumbnail, maybe you can't see the whole picture. But 20 seconds. Anyone? BB40, man, when you venture a guess. Oh man. Nobody, huh? Interesting. This means we'll have a lot to discuss in the next hour. Because I said I'm gonna go about 90 minutes into this. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. Uh Sister Nina said integration race message. Nope, we already mentioned that. Also, real quick, Brother Patrick, you are basically right there. Like you're closer than anybody. Okay, now see y'all must have went and looked at it because now people are getting it. Now people are getting it. But yeah, I will be releasing some more old shows this week, so look out for that. They'll be on coming on at 8 o'clock, and so they'll come up as a premiere. They are old shows, but they're like when I say they're old, I'm like the first shows that I did of the center and the old show of another show that I guest appeared on the Wake Up Radio. All right, so people getting closer. The brother said no fathers. Brother said single mothers, and before the man said lack of masculinity, and the sister said homophilia, and the sister said feminist movement. All those things are interrelated. And what have all those things either caused or the result of? All of those things are interrelated to the destruction of the black family, right? Look at the thumbnail. And actually, I don't even know where I got this from. I don't remember. There is a sister by herself, no man, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children in that picture, right? Now, I don't know her story. They may not all be her children. She may be watching other people's children. I do remember they said something about a family in Baltimore, right? One sister, 5 children, no man. All the children are black. There's no man anywhere, like anywhere in that picture. And again, like I said, I don't know her story, but we all know a similar story. We all see this in our community. Now, if you don't see it in your community, hey, I don't put you in that boat, but I see it. What is the problem? It's 2 problems. Well, actually, it's a multitude of problems, but problem 1 is nobody mentioned that right away in their number 1 problems for the black community, which is interesting because I think what has happened is that we're so used to seeing this that it becomes like it's not a problem, even though we know innately, like, yeah, this is not this is a problem. But we're so used to seeing it that when we start talking about what the problem is, it's not the first thing that comes to our mind. If we had to ask regular people, they've been like police brutality, liberals have been like poverty, yada, 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 so forth, so on. But you think about it, all of those things we attempted to address them, right, in some way, shape, form, or fashion at a time when our families were together, right? So let's go back to last week. What did we talk about? Last week we talked about Judas and the Black Messiah. And we talked about Fred Hampton. Okay. Fred Hampton had a mother and father. He came from a family. Huey P. Newton came from an intact family. Many of the other Panthers came from intact family. So, right? And then many of them, even in the midst of that chaos, tried to create family while still fighting a war with the police, right? Malcolm X didn't come from an intact family because his father was murdered, but the ideals of Garveyism were passed on to him, and then he did his best to build a family, right? So we don't think about it this way. At least I never thought about it this way. The vast majority of our revolutionary leaders that we look up to come from intact families, from going all the way back to Marcus Garvey, because we know the further back you go, the more intact the family is. So what is the cause of this phenomenon? How does this work? Here's what, and I think I've talked about this publicly before, but here's what a conclusion I came to, right? Your family is where you learn to interact with black people, love black people, even if you don't like them. You understand what I'm saying? Because you don't like everybody in your family, right? Especially those of y'all who grew up with siblings. I know people that don't like their brother, don't like their sister. Some people grow up and be, adults and still don't like whatever. But you love your family for the most part, right? When families were intact, that's what I'm saying, right? Like I said, most of our revolutionaries came from intact families. We haven't noticed it, right? But the further into integration we've gone, the more that the family has been broken down. And again, this is not a coincidence, right? Economic factors, all out assault via drugs, and really police terrorism, mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline. Yeah, we know the whole thing, right? But we haven't noticed that men in particular haven't been as uncompromising in the face of white supremacy, and women in particular have not been as supportive of the men who are the most uncompromising, right? What you'll often find from, I'll say, the 80s, right? Because we kind of had a break in the late 70s where we had the breakdown of a lot of groups and organizations. Of course, we know what happened with the nation, that changed their whole ideology and everything like that, right? The Panthers basically officially became defunct in like 1982. You had Black Liberation Army and some other groups, but that was really, they had really broke us down in the late 70s to early 80s. And then that's where the integration policies began to kick and get into effect, right? But at the same time, the early signs of the drug war with the heroin, especially in New York and some of the other big cities, PCP became a big thing in DC before crack. The cocaine on the West Coast and down in Florida. All of these things begin to break down of the family, right? Sincere Supreme says the problem with that, sister, is a manifestation of our lack of power. That problem is a symptom of a bigger problem. Right, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is our power comes from our families. I was saying when Gay Edgar Hoover said, right, want to prevent the rise of the Black Messiah. I'm saying, right, my hypothesis is, though, that when he stated that, someone else took that and implemented it after him, and they figured out what I came to the conclusion of, is that the way you do it is that you destroy the family, and that lessens the love of Black people for each other, because the family structure is where you learn to love Black people, right? If you look at the younger generations, right, you see a lot of identity crises. Boys don't know if they're boys or girls. Girls don't know if they're girls or boys. Boys don't want to. Some of these boys don't want to. They don't. Not only do they not want to be a boy, they don't want to be Black. They don't want to be a Black boy. They want to be a white girl, right? There's all types of confusion going on. People don't want to be Black. They want to be Hispanic. They want to be Indian. They want to be this, that, and the third, right? Everybody wants to be something other than an African man or woman, right? It's not just amongst our children, but in general. We talk about the gender battle between Black men and Black women, right? We have all those things going on. And one thing I saw, I didn't see, one thing I realized with that, right? if you talk to a lot of sisters, like, I talked to a lot of sisters over the last few years, and I've seen it mostly with sisters that are, well, most of the sisters I talk to are in their 30s. And I think the younger you get, the worse it gets, like most of everything. When you talk to sisters, what you realize is that many sisters don't have any, they don't have any really non-sexual interaction with brothers, right? So what I'm saying is that, like, the only men in their lives have been in the men in their beds for the most part. And I never thought about it, right? And I just assumed that just because someone doesn't have a father doesn't mean that they don't have an uncle, that they don't have a cousin, that they don't. But you have, it's more than I knew. You have many families where you have a single mother who is in her 50s, and she has two daughters, and she has a sister, and she has her mother, and that is the whole circle. And then some female friends, and that's their whole circle. And the girls have grown up in that environment, and now these women are grown women. And sometimes I have conversations with them, and they'll, the ones that are, they may be married or have a boyfriend or something serious. They'll ask me, "Oh, why does he do this?" Or, "We having this problem," or this, like that, so forth, so on. And we'll talk, and then I'll be like, sometimes I ask, I'll be like, "Well, why don't you don't have a brother?" They're like, "No, I have a brother." "You don't have an uncle?" "No, I have an uncle." "What about a cousin?" "I didn't grow up with my cousin." Just stuff like that. And I'm just like, when did this happen? I grew up different, right? So, you know, I had cousins that I grew up with, and which is interesting because I didn't grow up with siblings, so my cousins kind of took the place of siblings. And then I had older cousins who were like, and when I was young, I thought they were uncles, but they would just put me on to different things in life as a man. Like, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. Even like when I first went to high school. Yeah, you can ready to go to high school. Yeah, just look out for this and that. Be this and that. Just be yourself. Blah 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 blah. Don't worry about, focus on your school. Blah 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 blah. Right, all those things. But at the same time, I had aunts who give me a different perspective on stuff, and I didn't even really ask them stuff, but they were around if I needed them. And I had when I was a boy, I had both my grandparents. I had all four of my grandparents for a while. So that family structure, I had um BB40 to Kind Ranger. So I had both of my grandparents. Well, I mean, excuse me, all four of my grandparents. Um, my parents were together for um, a long while, but not my whole childhood. Then I had, like I said, I had uncles and cousins, and you know, up until recently, up until basically my grandmother passed, I knew I could go to one of my grandmother's houses and find anyone from that side of the family there. What I'm saying? I just know I go over there. Go over there on Sunday, I know they'll be there. Now with everything going on, everybody shook about the COVID. It's not the same. But again, so for 4 decades, I was able to do that. I didn't realize that other people didn't have that type of upbringing and that type of connection, and didn't have that type of access to the other gender in a way where you can receive advice, you can seek counsel, you have where you can model a positive relationship, you could see a positive relationship, you can hang around each other and see how, if you're a sister, see how brothers are, your brother, see how sisters are. And that total environment, I didn't realize. doesn't, for many people, doesn't exist. And so when we talk about it takes a village, there is no, for many people, there is no village, right? And because there is no village, you can't build anything of value, because everything of value that Black people have done for a million years, literally, comes from the village. So that the child is socialized by everyone that they interact with, right? And they learn a little something from everyone. So that you learn from your father, but you learn from your father's brother. And sometimes you learn what not to do. You're like, I don't want to be like that. He be tripping. You learn from, what I'm saying? You learn from your mother. You learn from your mother's sister, or your mother's brother, or sometimes your mother's cousin. What I'm saying? He comes over. He has these wild stories about stuff, and you listening to him, you're like, oh wow, that's crazy. Or he comes over, he got a flashy car. You're like, man, where you get that car from? Oh yeah, I do X, Y, and Z. You're like, oh word? Like, yeah, I'm a plumber or a truck driver or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So then your mind opens up to, you can, a different way of making money just because you see him, right? Like it is so many things that you learn from this collective. It's really, I gotta put it, the essence of African education is being immersed within the village, right? When you remove an element of the village, it's easier then to short circuit the education and then implant foreign ideologies within the person, like Amos Wilson talks about, right? And so, like I said, this was like a self revelation when I thought about this. I talked about this to I have an elder. He runs a school, and we were just talking about the condition of our people, and trying to organize. I think this was like in the early days of Straight Black Pride. Like, I mean, early days of Straight Black Pride in DC. Before you got ripped off. I'm not gonna talk bad about you. He said, "Oh, okay, got that plantation. Appreciate you, brother. I understand that. You know what I'm saying? Everything is real." Um, but yeah, in the early days of Straight Black Pride, so we were organized trying to build this thing up, really breaking new ground, new territory, because we were not getting support from the greater Pan African community. In fact, to a large degree, still not in this area. And there was at that time a striving, and shout out to you, got ripped off for the Cash App, the Do Nation, Sante Sana for that, brother. Like, yeah, we weren't getting support because of our stance against, our open stance against homosexuality, right? And so I asked Baba, I said, Baba, let me ask you a question. I said, do you think, now he's been part of SNCC and some other organizations, like say, has his own institution he's built. Been doing work since sometime in the 60s. I don't even know when he started. Like he marched with Martin Luther King. He done a lot of stuff. You name a person, like he knew them when they were here. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, you name it, like a who's who, right? I said, Baba, do you think that it's harder to organize now than it was then because of the family? I'm like, is there a connection there, or am I missing somewhere? Am I tripping? And he paused and he thought about it. And he was like, you know what, Bob? I never thought about that. You might be on to something. And that was now this is a conversation I had with him, I guess 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. What is it? It's 2021. It is a long time ago. Right. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, we got to go back to the foundation. In order to do anything we're talking about, I don't care what anyone is talking about. I don't care what area of people activity, because what kind of happens is you get in this movement, everybody seems to focus on one area of people activity. Greetings to Unique One Express. Um, Whether it's an economics, whatever. Y'all know the whole list. If not, buy a copy of the ISIS papers, read it, come back. Um, Brother Dawood says kids need to see men and women interact in a positive manner. My pops passed when I was a young, but I always had married family members, for an example, that made me want to grow up and have a family. And that brother has successfully had a family for, brother, you fill in the years, because as Rakim say, it's been a long time. You know, I was around when he met his queen. So salute to that brother. You know what I'm saying? Fantastic brother right there. But after I thought about it, and then I did these questions, or that actually the question, and then these answers came up, and when nobody said anything that was really centered around the family, and I thought about it after the fact, I was like, huh, we may be missing it, because everybody that answered is conscious. Everybody that answered has knowledge, and yet that was not the question. That was not any of the answers they were given at the time. So, in my point of view, I have come to the conclusion: right, wrong, or indifferent. And here's the good part. It's a good part for me anyway. I'm already in straight black pride, so I don't have to like go to a different movement, different organization, or totally change my ideology and things like that. But even within the context, I didn't look at it as maybe because when we started, it seemed like it at least seemed like the family was more intact. But I know that's just how it seemed. I know it's not like things don't change that quickly. It's been 7 years or something, so it hadn't been that long. I think it's my perception. But it seemed like the relationship between black men and black women was not as toxic as it is now. And then the attack, as far as showing black men with white women and white men with black women every single day on TV, and especially in commercials, had not taken place yet. So the idea that the way to escape the what they would say, what many would say, is the quote unquote toxic relationship between black men and black women, is to get with these other people. That hasn't been, or that hadn't been prominently featured in media yet. But it was there, but it wasn't prominent. Like you didn't see, like you saw brothers with, at that point, women you really just couldn't identify, right? You saw that. But you didn't see as openly as you see now sisters with Yurugu. Because for a long period of time, um, sisters that's, at least publicly, right? Now maybe they only saying that because the brothers around. Sisters basically did not find Yurugu. I've heard sisters say they didn't find them. They weren't masculine enough. They weren't attractive. They were pale. They looked dirty. They stink. Like, this is just stuff sisters have said like my whole life. And you laugh and you're like, oh, cool. And you just feel like you're like, okay. And you, at least me, at that time in forward until infinity, I'm like, cool. I'm glad sisters feel that way because you're not gonna deal with Yurugu. I'm not gonna deal with Yurugu. We're gonna have to find a way to deal with each other, even if it's not each other personally, each other as a collective. I can live with that deal, right? I'm fine with that because to me, as a black man, anything else was a downgrade and is a downgrade, physically, mentally, spiritually, right? So I had no problem with that. But now, different generation, two things are happening at the same time. One, the younger sisters, are seeing my phone making all these notifications. I thought I turned this thing down. So pardon me on that. One, our sisters are seeing um, people on TV and people that they look up to, like Serena Williams, showing them that they have an opportunity with another man. And what's deep about it, right, for the sisters, is what's so deep is if you look at some of these different YouTubes where they talk about men and women all the time, which I understand because it's a hot topic and you get a lot of views. And it's something I like to talk about because I think it's relevant. You know what I'm saying? When I put this, like I said, when I put this poll up and then I thought about it, it's like, oh, wait a minute. So is it relevant? It's going to be relevant until we get it right. It's going to be worth talking about until we get it right. It's going to be worth, we're going to have to find some way to do uh, some form of the singles mixers that we were doing before until we get it right. Like we're going to have to keep doing programs until we get it right. And we had to figure it out in this new COVID age, where you just can't do stuff you were doing, whatever. Right. Um, but wow, I just lost my train of thought. But I don't know. I guess I never realized how disconnected the breakdown of the family made us from each other in the sense of just not being able to understand each other because you just don't grow up around each other. And it's something I think um it's just something that I don't think occurs to people. It doesn't occur to men, right? I'll be completely honest. It it doesn't occur to men that the reason that many women think the things they think is simply because they don't know, they didn't grow up around any men. They don't know any men. They don't have any positive interaction with men whatsoever. So you just, it is one of those things. Sister Farnessa says, I see more immigrant black females with Urugu than anything. I see, I don't see a lot in person, period. But then again, I'm not socializing like I was before everything happened. But I have seen, I don't know, is the BB40 man, if he's in here, he just, to your point, weirdly enough, he earlier earlier this week told me about and I had saw the clip, but I didn't know the background. A show with a sister, but apparently she's Nigerian or something, and she's with a Yurugu, and she has a quote unquote, I guess, nanny. He's a black male, but he's a homosexual, and just this whole all types of shenanigans going on. Right? They have children that they adopted. It's a new TV show that's coming out. So to your point, yeah, I see that. But again, Serena Williams is not an immigrant. Serena Williams is from Compton. Um, I'm trying to think who else. What's her name? Uh, Gabby Sidibe. Now she may be from somewhere else. She may be like second generation immigrant or whatever. I'm not really sure of her background, but you're starting to see it more and more, and they're starting to promote it more and more. But as far as that goes, we just got to be completely honest. Sisters are way behind the race to destroy our race through laying up with other people, and brothers are. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter if no brother here has ever laid up with, looked at, or whatever Urugu. It doesn't matter. From the days of OJ, you know, forward. You know, I mean, going back to the 60s and the free love and all that stuff. A lot of that was just integration. Just laying up with just Negroes laying up with white women. And a lot of that started on the West Coast. And, you know, you see the manifestation now with what's going on. Sisters always tell me about the West Coast. And I've talked about it before. There's no need to reiterate. But the interesting thing that though the people who quote unquote date out or whatever you want to call it, it's just so interesting to observe it because they do not have the same standards for non-black men that they have for black men. And black men don't have the same standards for non-black women that they have for black women. They just don't. Brother Patrick said Mzungu is always threatened by the sight of black man with a black woman in unity. Absolutely, because they know that's how the Black Messiah gets here. And Kind Ranger says in sports and entertainment, straight black men are few compared to other races. Yeah, we talked about the hip hop thing. Yeah, the whole hip hop thing now, as far as like basically anybody under 30, they're all doing all types of sexual debauchery. Brother Igwe Heshima says black people are not strong at all on the West Coast, and that's depressing. Being completely honest, because there's a strong history there. So for that not West Coast not to be strong that's rough. Unique One Express says, as far as sisters dating out, from my observations and what I hear, is because many sisters don't feel appreciated and loved by a lot of brothers, to the point where many sisters just go out. I mean, I hear brothers say that too, but my question is always, who are you around? And what type of people are you attracted to? Because I see a lot of sisters, and I've seen this my entire existence on Earth, including members of my family. I could bring you personal stories. I've seen sisters for minimum 35 years literally chase after the worst person they could find, and there's always 3 to 10 choices. I've seen this in my family. I've seen this with sisters that I grew up with. I've seen it my whole entire life. I have no explanation for it whatsoever. So with that, whether it's men or women, to me, that's really an excuse, because as somebody who been in this movement forever, it's not like there was clapping, cheering sisters when we were out in essence risking our lives trying to rid the places where they live of the drugs. So we could all sit around and point things that the other gender did and so forth, so on. But my point is that what you said, the foundation of it is, from what I've seen, with the exception of Serena Williams, again, just seems to be the exception to this stuff. Most of those sisters do not have a good relationship with their father, if they even know who he is. Because of course that's a whole nother thing. They estimate fraternity fraud at 30%. I tend to believe it's higher. And maybe I've been looking at too much paternity court, but man, when they start bringing out people that's old enough to be my mother and they own paternity court and grown people sitting around trying to figure out who their father is and stuff like that. I mean, it just boggles the mind. Brother BB 48 man says the show is called She's the Boss. You said you beg to differ. I'm sure you do. Women always beg to differ because women. One thing that women will never take responsibility for is their choices in the bedroom. We can, anybody want to discuss that, have a show about it. We can have a show about. I debate anybody, but you cannot. Women cannot tell me because I've been around women who are very attractive. I've been around women that are not attractive at all, and there's always extra guys around. The difference is now is that they just in your DMs instead of in your face. It is what it is. And Alan, greetings to you. I haven't seen you here before. If anyone sees me romantically involved with a non-black woman, I hope they shoot me. I must have gone crazy. It's funny you said that because I was somebody else used to always say that. You're like, you see me selling out, take me out. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, to be completely honest, there's no reason either way, but there's really no reason for men because the women outnumber us. I mean, the only thing I can think of is you happen to live somewhere where there's just not a lot of black people in general, in which case the solution to that is simply to move. But again, until going back to the root of this thing, because we can make all the excuses we want because we all do, until people are as a collective, and if not as a collective, what I'm saying, those who don't want to make this commitment, we can't deal with them in any way, shape, or form because they're enemies. Until people are willing to make the commitment to each other. Anybody that's not willing to make the commitment to each other, we just have to consider them enemies. You know what I'm saying? And Sister Farnessa says, why do black people keep falling for the women outnumber us? Well, actually, the women do. I mean, percentage-wise, it's low, but people-wise, it's not low. I mean, it is what it is. And hold up, Unique One Express said two different things. Hold on. Especially considering the colorism and misogyny towards black women coming from black men many times. That pushes sisters away. What men? Because one thing when you talking to me, I don't want to hear what Negroes are doing because they're Negroes. Just plain and simple. Like, there are plenty of black men who love black women who have, because again, I said this before, 51% of black men are single and childless. So even though there are more women statistically, they're actually more, the number of single men kind of lines up because the percentage of men who are single is higher than percentage of women. I know it's weird dynamic. We've been socially engineered to be mismatched in so many different ways. And when you see these statistics, you have to double check them because they don't actually make sense on the surface. And the sister says that the misogyny and colorism pushes sisters away. And Alan says we must remember mainstream media is merely propaganda. No question. And that's why when I talk about stuff like this, I actually have to go and not only look at the statistics, but then look at the statistics of the statistics. Like who founded this study? Who did this study? What was the purpose? Things like that. But there's a lot of things that we don't talk about as a people because we don't have, other than something. Damn, I forgot about that. It was something I had wanted to do before all this COVID. I had wanted to have a forum, open discussion with men and women, but not open. A closed door discussion between black men and black women. That's what I'll say. It was open as far as anyone could express what they think and say what they think, but it was closed door as far as no outside people. I forgot all about that, to be honest. Um, and I did a smaller version of that on here last year, and I thought it was interesting. It's weird because when I reposted it, it did not get a lot of likes or views. So it is what it is. I guess people didn't like it, or maybe they didn't. Uh, the brother says millions of black women on the planet. The few who hurt me ain't an excuse to sell out. Yeah, no question. It says Farnessa says the white man can account for the number of babies that are born in hospital versus the number of babies that he's killing. Can or can't that he's killing in these abortion clinics? What about those that are doing home births versus those that are born in the bush? White people are notorious for lying about statistics and raw data. Well, the only thing I'll say to that is the European does everything within their power. Now, I've always thought they've undercounted us overall. I've always thought that, but not to the point that it changes the demographics completely. Because one thing I found out, you start traveling out to the to what I call the outback of America, like the Iowas and West Virginias and Pennsylvanias. Oh my goodness, you really realize how many Yorugos in this country. It's like, oh wow, yeah, I don't want to come here ever again. BB48 man says Serena knows who her father is, but I don't think she had a good relationship with him. I think that and I'm speculating, to be honest, just speculating. I have no clue, but it appears that when their parents broke up, that may have affected them more than anyone ever let on. There was some obvious animosity there when they broke up, and the animosity had obviously been there before that. And people tend to take sides when that happens. It just is. It is what it is. And I think that's probably has more to do with her later decisions. Because if you think about it, at least to my knowledge, y'all correct me, Serena wasn't publicly dealing with no European before that, but afterwards, it's kind of a wrap. It's kind of dudes kind of got lighter and lighter. One minute she was with I don't know, man, she's been with a lot of people, but one minute she was with Common, and then she's with the white dude. So, and then Common went and got with some white woman that extremely unattractive. Made me question his old. Anyway, yeah. So let's not go get into that. Just leave it alone. I don't even know if he's still with that person, so no need to disparage the man's name. But back to what Unique One Express said about colorism and misogyny. And one of the things is when someone doesn't have, not someone, a group of people don't have positive interactions in their life, what I think, you become more susceptible to what I think it was Allen was saying, the media and the propaganda and things like that. Because I remember talking to a sister one time, speaking on a colorism, and I thank you for reminding me. I'm supposed to be having a colorism show, but some melanated sisters I want to talk to, but I gotta see if I can get them on. Just talk about their experiences as dark skinned women. That's what the show is supposed to be about. And I just forgot completely about it. One of the things, well, I think what happens is you don't have that foundation, and then you measure, because you don't know, I have a lot of interaction with men in general. You measure what you think black men think and what black men like and what black men say by the people that are put in front of you. Who are the people that are put in front of black people? Everybody that's put in front of black people is a coon, being completely honest. Your rappers are, I mean, since at least the early 2000s, there was, and I think we talked about this, but there was a systematic approach to lighten the um what they call them, the video vixens. The lighter the better. That was the whole video vixen thing. Every video vixen you saw was light skinned except for like one or two, and I don't remember anybody's name. So yeah, if you grew up and you see that, you say you're 10, so you're 30 years old, you've seen that for 20 years. You see, you don't see. I'm trying to think. You don't really see any. I'm trying to think. Any positive, what I would consider positive, dark skinned women on TV. I know the closer you get, I know the further away from the 80s and 90s, the less you see. Like, I don't, are there any dark skinned sisters on TV anymore? I don't look at enough TV to even know what's going on. So I can see that. And depending on what social media you're plugged into, you're seeing complete madness. This platform, the things between black men and black women on YouTube have been and are in many cases just pure insanity. And then some of the stuff that I see like on Twitter, the back and forth there is just, it actually makes the stuff on YouTube look like intelligent discourse because it's younger people and the vitriol there. Like people it's so bad on Twitter that many times I don't believe it's black people. Because the things that the women say, I've never heard any black woman say, right? Now, again, it's a younger generation. I'm not plugged in. I don't know what's going on. But when brothers were talking about the sisters calling brothers bullet bags, talking about brothers getting killed by the police and being happy about it, completely insane. And then the random, I almost said something, nonsense that you see some of these dudes that's supposed to be black saying, it's just like where you literally like, where did you grow up? Who is this dude? But I can't discount that these are real people because, again, it's a different generation, and DC and the surrounding area is different. It was a different mentality up until the last 10 years since gentrification. So I can't say that wherever these people are, that people don't think like that beyond them. Sister said, and the darker skinned sisters on TVs nowadays are almost always shown in a negative light. See, I don't even know. Any. Like I said, I don't even. I have no idea what show even has sisters that would not pass the brown paper bag on it. But I would make the argument that no one on TV that's black is really shown in a positive light. But again, I don't know. I don't watch enough television to know what's going on. So like when I see, actually not when I see, like sometimes somebody show me clips of oh man, what's the reality show? Housewives thing. Like they show me clips sometimes, and everybody's acting insane. So I don't like look and say, oh, they're making the dark skin sister a little bit. Everybody on the thing and everybody on the clip is acting insane. You know, which is why I use them as a thumbnail for Tuesday nights rebroadcast. So, but the thing is that at least those of us that know, when you turn on TV, you know what you're signing up for. You have to watch it through a filter. And if you choose to watch it, sometimes you have to see what's the hidden message. The same way when I went to watch the movie last week, I said, all right, watch the movie. I'm gonna watch it twice. I still haven't actually watched it the second time because I didn't find it really entertaining enough to watch it a second time. Um, the first time I watched it with a filter and saw what it was and wasn't impressed. But I understand the masses of our people aren't going to do that, right? The housewives shows, right? But again, the reason they're not going to do that, or the reason, yeah, the reason they haven't been taught to watch it through a filter is because again, the lack of connection with that brother, uncle, cousin. Back in the day, everybody had a quote unquote crazy Muslim cousin that would come over and drop knowledge, and everybody get mad at them for ruining holidays and stuff, and telling them not to eat pork, and then leave. I guess people don't have that person anymore. I know that person because I was that person. BB48 man says Serena was publicly dating film director Brett Ratner, a known social deviant. I have absolutely no idea who that is. What films did he do? But I don't even remember that. Yeah, I don't even remember that. I not gonna lie, I had at one time for a long time a gigantic crush on Serena Williams, and one of my boys used to hang with. He had a crush on Venus, which is hilarious. Which is why we're cool, 'cause we like different type of women. But yeah. So once saw her, you know, make her transition away from black men, I just stopped paying attention largely. So yeah, I don't know who Brett Ratner is, but uh, we see the outcome, and we can sit here and debate for whys and wherefores, but we are where we are, and shows like speaking of television, a big show. We forget how huge this show was. At least I forget how huge this show was. And it's not. Um, it doesn't have anything to do with colorism, but it has something to do with opening up black women for European males with Scandal. Huge show. Like when I had my first Twitter account before that got uh before they booted me off of there. That was a huge show, and I wasn't watching it, so I wasn't seeing any of the messages and stuff. And then eventually, I saw that she was laying up with Urugu, and sister was like, I was on Twitter, so I knew that at Thursday at whatever 8, 9 o'clock, whatever it was, I knew that that time it was no need to tweet anything relevant unless I was just talking to brothers because sisters weren't gonna pay attention because Scandal was on, and this included sisters that were supposedly conscious, believe it or not. Let's see. Sister Nina Taylor says, "Yes, it's true. Dark skinned sisters almost always shown negatively. The angry ghetto girl, the highly sexualized one, etc." Yeah, I mean, but we understand the small hats. They invented Hollywood, so And brother Igwe says she was with Lennox Lewis for a little. Really? Yeah. Wow, never knew that. And yeah, I remember LeVar Arrington, but yeah, the Lennox Lewis thing. I must have missed that one. That's interesting. Um, and brother I Allen says, since childhood, I wanted a woman so black you couldn't see her at night. Um, hey, understand, understand. You know, I'm not going to comment on that because anything I say may lead to the realm of the inappropriate. But I understand, brother. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, and the brother says we all know black love reigns supreme, despite all the foolishness. Yeah, indeed. But in into what the brother's saying, the the foundation, in my humble opinion, of all our problems go to the destruction of the black family, which means not the solution to all our problems, but the foundation of all the solutions to our problems, are within the context of rebuilding the black family, right? Now, that's, you can either agree or disagree. That's my hypothesis. However, here's the issue, or one of them. I personally believe we're going to have to change our entire understanding of love within the context of being a group that is under siege and understand and changing it from a European derived understanding and something that's derived from the European value system that we've been given, and taking it and making it from a African derived understanding, right? So we have to develop, in essence, a wartime measure of love because we're under siege. So we don't have the luxury. And this is going to be the hardest part. We have to accept, because it's not, I don't think it's something that we don't know, but we have to accept the whoever makes the covenant that they're going to be with a black man that makes a covenant, he's going to be with a black woman. The black woman that makes a covenant, she's going to be with a black man. Has to accept that there's going to be a lack of perfection, and what we have is may not look like or feel like what we think other people have, because we are operating from a different paradigm and our objective is different. If our objective is not different, we cannot make this work, right? I mean, it's really a very simple concept, but it's very hard for people to change their mind on what they think love is, because love in and of itself, the words in African languages don't even equate to the stuff we've been taught with the Europeans, quote unquote, romantic love. It's different conceptually, right? And there's a brother that wrote a book. I don't know where the book is, somewhere in my book closet, but he wrote a book about this, right? And at the time, it's interesting. At the time he wrote the book was at a time where I was ready to receive the book, right? But sometimes somebody can drop knowledge on you and you're not ready to receive it and won't do anything with it. And he talked about the African concept going back to ancient Kemet and translating the words that are similar to love, and talked about the symbols that are used, and talked about the symbiotic relationship between black men and black women that we had then and how we thought of it. And it was different from the European conceptions of love, even though, weirdly enough, the Europeans got their whole entire idea of a man being able to love a woman from African people. But they took it the same way that they took the God concepts and other things, and they filtered it through their culture to come up with something that is distinct from what we had. And now we're doing unconsciously is we're taking what they've given us that they took and distorted, and we're taking it, and it's even more distorted when we take it back and try to utilize it, right, in our relationships, and it's not working at all. It's not working at all. And so now the whole concept of love has to be re-engineered, right? In fact, we shouldn't even call it that. We actually have to go back and pick some African words, and because I think that in itself will start pointing us in the right direction. Um, Unique One Express says, and yes, while most of our people are seen in dysfunction on media outlets, dark skin on black men is seen as good, while undesirable on black women. Hmm. Hmm. Um. Is it? I mean, I brothers, y'all answer that for me. Y'all answer that in the media. Sister Farnessa said, "This is why we must get to know each other without any sex involved to make sure that we are going in the same direction. We must return to court and stop dating because there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference in, maybe I call Bob and Rudy, ask him to write a. He probably look at me like I'm crazy. He'll sign elders work. Sounds crazy, just me saying it, but I mean, yeah. Um, and, maybe he needs to write another complementarity book. You know, I know they have the complementarity conference every year, which is always good, but it's better in person now. You can't bring it in person. It's we had to find a way around that. BB48 man says Ratner directed Rush Hour films. He's in a famous photo with Russell Simmons lying in a bed, wrapped in a towel. He was also exposed as a passenger on the Lolita Express. Oh, I seen that Russell Simmons picture. I didn't have any idea who that was. Okay. Okay. Um Sister said no, hold on. Con Ranger says limited dating to the speed rounds at an event. Yeah, we actually were gonna do one of those. That was like the next thing on the menu as far as the speed dating thing. I mean, like I said, I think we had to reconceptualize that whole thing altogether because, like I said, we've been socially engineered against each other so much, and a lot of women gonna get mad at me for saying this, but it's a reality situation. I see a lot of no problem, brother. I see a lot of non-traditional women wanting traditional, either wanting traditional men or wanting traditional things from men. And when I say traditional, not even necessarily in the African sense, even from sisters that's conscious, but traditional in the things that we have been taught. Um, Really, we've been taught from the European sense, because again, what we tend to think of, even if we're thinking in the right direction, we're thinking on an individual level, and we've never been an individual people. So when you talk about, for example, right, the whole defense thing, or my bad, not defense, the whole perfect um, protection thing, right, where sisters will say, "I don't feel protected by men," and I had talked about this on another um, podcast. Oh, your sister. My bad. Thank you for telling me. You just let me keep calling you brother for an hour with it. Okay. Thank you, sister. Um, But as I was explaining before, another brother, he agreed with me. Part of the protection comes from guidance, right? True story. Many, many years ago, right? I was with a sister. We were walking to uh we were walking to my house at the time. And I told her to wait because um the street, it wasn't a highway, but it was a busy thoroughfare, it's a busy street coming from a train station, right? And um we weren't crossing. The light was at the top of the hill, but everyone crossed. I think they had a crosswalk or something. I can't remember. It's been years ago. But we were crossing where there wasn't a light, but there was always a lot of traffic. I told the sister to wait, right? I don't remember. She didn't hear me. She just ignored. I don't remember what it was, but she walked past me. I've stopped. I'm looking. I'm observing the traffic. I understand how the traffic lights work, when you can and when you can't go. Even if the light, if you see the light red from our perspective, the light come. I mean, the traffic coming in a different direction can still come past where we are, and that's why you have to observe to make sure. Again, I gave her guidance to stop moving. Do not walk forward. She walked forward. A guy come flying over the hill, probably ran the light, and sped towards her. I thought he was going to hit her. If he had hit her, he would have killed her. And then he, like, you know, maneuvered around her and drove on down the street. Right now, for me, once I got over, you know, the shock and the panic, and everything was all right, but it wasn't all right. Right? I was like, I was like, I was like, why didn't you? Why didn't you stop when I stopped? I can't remember what she said, but my point in telling that story is the protection started with the guidance. I could have, when I noticed her, run out there and dove into her and tackled her out the way. But it turns out that actually, if I had done that, I would have pushed her into the path of the vehicle, and we possibly both could have been killed. Right? But had she followed the guidance, nothing after that takes place, because you would have walked when I walked, and because I'm walking on the side facing the traffic, if something like that had happened and someone was hit, it would have been me. Right? Again, we don't think of that, or maybe we do, as an act of love. But many women bristle at receiving guidance from men, not realizing that the guidance is given not to dominate, but the guidance is giving as the beginning of the protection. But many modern women bristle at that. But they want you to come protect them from a situation that you told them to not even get themselves involved in the first place. And then if you have to enter in at that point, usually somebody's going to die or go to jail. But the wise thing is to never even be in a situation in the first place. Right? So that's what I'm saying with that. Sister Nina says, since Hollywood began, the small hats have used all black men and women as people without relevance, so it's nothing new, but we think the same as small hats, so we can't see it as a problem. The hats definitely have our minds twisted around. So, Kind Ranger, you are okay, okay, that's you. So y'all be switching up on me and trying to trick me out here and make me look crazy. Okay, glad to see you here. Um, so yeah, so somebody else had a question, but I missed it. Somebody asked, define non-traditional women. Feminist women are non-traditional women. Many women, a large percentage of women, are feminists just because of the environment. Um, and just like a just like a growing percentage of men are misogynist. Oh, well, I can't even. I don't even know if it's growing. It seems like it's growing. Yeah, maybe the percentage is revealing itself more. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, because of the. I mean, started with our generation. Really, being completely honest, like maybe it didn't start with our generation, but I think we were immersed in it younger then. As far as the misogyny, we were immersed in it younger because hip hop music was young youth music, excuse me. And so, I mean, we've talked about that. The whole NWA, Luther Campbell. I mean, we talked about all that. We've been there. We plowed that soil. Sister says, I appreciate when security or a man escorts me back to my car at an evening event at E Life Cafe. I'm glad you appreciate that, sister. Um, Pretty sure that I actually initiated that protocol, but I'm not going to take credit for it. It's a group effort. But um, learn that course. You know, y'all know where I learned that. Learned that nation. Um, but yeah, so Sister Farnessa says, "Oh, wait a minute, hold up. I'm about to read the wrong part. You just said earlier that there were no men in the home and that the only interaction with men is when they're in relationships. Yeah, like, there's a lot of sisters like that. Then says, so is it that these women are bristling at you just because, or is it that they aren't used to guidance from a man? Oh no, they definitely many sisters definitely aren't used to guidance from a man, without question. Personally, I have no issue with listening to a brother and taking his advice. I'm used to it. I have four brothers, and that's the difference. Yeah, no, and I'm not even talking about me personally. I don't get a lot of in my personal life. Um, I don't get a lot of um, for lack of a better word, I don't get a lot of static from sisters. I have pretty good relationship with most of the sisters I know. You know, um, and when I do, we normally talk it out, say what's going on. So it's not. I don't really have that problem. And also, if there's someone around me who, like, I don't allow people around me who, if you're not with the program, you just not part of my life. That's just how I am. I've always been like that. Like whatever I'm doing, if you're not doing what I'm doing, then man, woman, doing it don't matter. His brothers that I used to hang with, they start doing other stuff. Oh, that's what you're doing now. Oh, we ingesting illicit substances. That's nah. We not doing that. You doing that? All right, cool. I'm out. That's how I've always been. I've never been. Um, I've never been one of those people that had to follow the crowd. I've always felt like, if I do what I do, I can build a crowd. And if not, then that's cool too. I don't need a lot of people. You know, it's because I don't know. You find out that the path, the path you choose in this life can be a lonely path. Um, because it is. And sister said we should get drop messages. Oh, voice messages in the chat. You know, don't make me send you a link now. I will send you a link, but I know you won't show up now that I know who you are. But yeah. So going back to the root of this thing, I just found it interesting that the people who answered the question. Um, and maybe next, I don't know. Yeah, maybe next week I will do the other question if I remember it, which was a question just for conscious people. But that's what I wanted to tell y'all quickly, somewhat quickly. And y'all tell me, you got about 15, 16 people here. I am thinking about, not promising, I am thinking about doing a 1 hour live stream in the afternoon, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Y'all let me know if that's something y'all would be interested in. Think about doing that in lieu of like doing quick videos. I I say it seemingly every show. I hate video editing, but there are things that happen during the week that I do want to talk about and would like some, not just talk about, but like some interaction. Um, so y'all let me know, is that something that y'all would be interested in? Because I understand people work and do, people gotta do what they do, but I figured that most, I don't know that. I don't know what people do. I just figured with the modern technology that that's something that even if you're at work, it might be something to be able to tune into and maybe provide a distraction for whatever you're doing for a quick hour. Because definitely, if I do it, it's definitely gonna be an hour or less. Just gonna be in, hour, out. Um, Brother I Allen says, I've dated women whose mama taught them don't listen to no ends in reference to black males. Wow. Well, that pretty much would be the end of that relationship because if that's what her mother's saying, it's really not a whole lot to talk about. Wow. That's all I can say to that. That that's interesting. And Cotton Ranger says, Urugu culture tends to strip single black women of Mayat femininity because we're not catered to as women to be respected in this society. I've heard um, I've heard a lot of different sisters say that. That that in and of itself is a reason why when we talked a couple of weeks ago or whatever about separating from black people, that you have to, and this is a man thing. This is not no, this is something men have to do. This is a man thing. This is what men have to do. We have to, whether here or elsewhere, build an environment and maintain an environment where people can be themselves. And what I mean by that is, right, if, yeah, I can only describe it because you didn't see it. Like there are certain institutions here in DC where if a sister goes there and she doesn't have natural hair, she stands out, right? Where if her brother brings in someone that's obviously not a black woman, he's looked at like he's crazy. If they, you may not even be able to get into the place, depending on what it is. If it's a business, yeah, you'll be able to get into the place, but everybody gonna look at you like you're crazy. Um, where um, if it's obvious that you're someone that has knowledge, you're going to be treated as if you're family, even if those people don't know you, right? Like that's the type of, and that's has they they wearing it down and they're erasing it from DC, but that is the culture of certain parts of DC and certain institutions in DC that I grew up in, right? So even though the majority of the city was just regular black people, within the confines, the walls of those institutions, those businesses, right? In that area, being an African, or at least not being a Negro, being someone with knowledge, was welcomed and was the norm. And then what you're talking about, at least at in that space, I can't guarantee what happens when you leave. In that space, on those streets, in that institution, people are free to be themselves. Men were expected to be men, right? You could not in uh, the 90s be a brother walking on Georgia Avenue, in that section of Georgia Avenue, and be questionable in your masculinity and be comfortable, right? That has been broken down. Well, again, that's why I say either here, because now that the Democrats are in office, and it's something that they do a video on later. Now that they're in office, they're going to virtually make it uh, illegal just for men to be men, and they've equated so much um, blackness with homosexuality that when you say you're pro-black, people are going to assume that you're pro-homosexuality. That's how far it's gone. So we have to have spaces again. That's why I said he either here, and it may get to the point where it's not even legal here. That's how far I think they're going to take it, where people can be what they are, as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said. Excuse me. She said, "I will not rest until black children are free to be." God, man, I'm about to butcher the quote. In essence, what she said, I'm paraphrasing. She will not rest until black children are free to be who they are naturally, right? And proud to be who they are naturally. So many people just took it as her saying that black children are proud to be black. I took it a little differently. I say, not just that black children are proud to be black, but that black boys are proud to be black boys, and that black girls are proud to be black girls, and that black boys want to grow up to be strong black men, and black girls want to grow up to be strong feminine women, right? That's how I took that quote that I did not quote 100% correctly. Um, Wait a minute. A lot of people have said a lot of things. Hold up. Brother Alan, I'm assuming you're a brother. Don't know, since we've been butchering people. Break down the African concepts of love you spoke on earlier, bro. I would have literally, I would have to go back, get those books, and dig into that information, and like do a show on it. It's not something. How can I put? I don't have as crisp a grasp on it as I did when I was studying it, because I was in that space mentally to study that, and to I was trying to process some things that um, I was going through, and um, it made me look at things differently and say, "Oh, okay, I'm going about this wrong. I'm measuring things wrong. This whole my whole understanding of this thing is wrong." And so then I went and got the different resources, and then it changed my whole perspective, like rewired my brain. But um, in a very basic way, European concepts of love are based around lust and physicality. African conceptions of love are based around spirituality and complementarity. At the very base level, that's the difference, right? Doesn't mean that an African man doesn't want an African woman that he finds attractive, or an African woman doesn't want an African man that she finds attractive. it means that our conception of love is two things. One, in European um, poems and stories and things like that, the love is something that happens instantaneously, right? Largely, they talk about love at first sight. As soon as I saw this person, I knew I loved them. I knew we are gonna be with them the rest of my life, so on and forth, so on. That's the love that we've been presented, right? The African concept is based upon a an elevating to love, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Meaning, I see a person, they see me, they're not abhorrent to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not running away from the sight of them, right? Okay. You you say I'm on this is what my goals are. I'm on this path, right? You say that to a sister. She says, "Oh, that's good. I've been trying to find a brother who's on that path, who is going to implement that program because that's the type of man who I want to father my children." Right? That gives you the commonality. The love may not come truly for 6 years until you see this person um in a you see them spiritually naked as opposed to physically naked, and you see how they really are, and you see them at their best when they do what they do best, and you appreciate them more. And then you go through the whole process, the whole love language thing. You learn to communicate with each other, and you get to a point where of communication where a lot of times you don't have to say anything, right? But that's a process that's built up to in the African concept, whereas in the European concept, it's the exact opposite. So that's a very base level, basic understanding, brother. I hope I brought some light to that. Um, and brother Dawood says you're correct, brother. Black liberation is being killed by the term intersectionality. Man, I hate that term. I don't like saying it. As in intersectionality with other people's causes that have nothing to do with our struggle. Indeed. And in fact, when I do the lecture, and I already know that most of the people here will at least support that. I need a certain number of people because I'm trying to upgrade my computer game. But because I need something. Um, I want the highest performance streaming computer I can get so that everything is good for y'all. Um, what was I gonna say? Well, part of the lecture, part of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing Day deals with that concept within the feminism and the whole. We get to the root of that. And Kind Ranger says village community can definitely eliminate dating. Yeah, because what happens is, and it's so funny, going back to the Panthers real quick. Not that I think what they did was ideal, but one thing, talking to uh, people that were Panthers or were around the Panthers, is that because the sisters um, had made the decision that the sisters would only deal with Panthers, and the Panther relationships were based largely on people's commitment to the cause and the commitment to the struggle. And so even though they didn't build uh like they didn't I'm gonna even though they didn't build a separate community, right? They separated themselves by just saying we're just not dealing with anybody that's outside of this community, this institution. And that was the women's decision. And a lot of times sisters get mad at me when I talk about this, but sisters that gotta understand, right? You get mad at me all you want. Sisters control in the modern context here in the West who comes onto the planet I'm going to say that again. I'm going to say it again, right? Y'all listening? I'm going to say it again. Sisters, black women, whether they're conscious or not, whether they consciously understand it or not, sisters control who comes onto the planet. Why? The reason is obvious. Because women control access to sex and men control access to marriage. The minute that the European convinced women in general, because I actually kind of got to black women late. It started with their own women who already been doing whatever in reality. The minute that the European convinced women to not be gatekeepers of who comes on the planet, everything changed at that moment. Everything changed. Sister Vanessa says, oh man, she says, I read it too late. Because now I don't know what she's referring to. But she says facts, that's why we need, to stop dating. It's rooted in Euro hoarder. Sister Vanessa said it, I didn't. But the problem is, right? When you don't grow up as a woman, this now, this is something they've been saying for a while, but yes, it is what it is. Just like there's certain things that if a man doesn't grow up with his father, certain things you miss, and you have to, the best you can, try to get them from men around you. It may be, I can't say it's more, but it's just as crucial for a sister to grow up with her father, because the first thing that she doesn't do is she doesn't go looking for that love and validation that she didn't get from her father. She doesn't go looking for that out in the street, because you're never going to find that out in the street. You're going to find a lot of exploitation, degradation, and at least in the past, humiliation, because now no one has shame, so no one's humiliated out in the street. That's what sisters will find when they don't get that needed love and validation and encouragement from a father or father figure when they're young. It's just as dangerous, and possibly in a way more dangerous, for a sister to not have that connection with her father as a brother. And it's something we all know and something that's been talked about, but it's something we don't like to talk about. And as a community, we are on, I should say, a downward spiral because of what is becoming the normalization and the acceptance of horror culture. And this was deep for the men. For the men, it was something that many men benefited from and therefore didn't want to try to stop early. And now it's coming back to bite many men in the back later. Right? And some men who is affecting, it's not their fault because they're a different generation. It wasn't their responsibility. In the grand scheme of things, it was largely the responsibility of my generation, because that's where the beginning was. Right? But before that, it was the previous generation, because that generation is where the beginnings of the I don't need a man thing was happening, which I didn't even understand at the time. And I'm going to talk about somebody who I almost never agree with, but I have to admit, she was talking about this stuff when I was, I don't know how young. But a lot of things that were going on with the women, Shahrazad Ali was the first one to call out. And I thought, being completely honest, I saw her talking. I thought she was a nut. There's still plenty of stuff she said I don't agree with. It is what it is, you know. But there were some things that she was ahead of her time on talking about, and we see the results now. When she was talking about it, I didn't know what she. I had no idea what she was talking about because I didn't know the type of women and type of rhetoric that she was talking about women saying. I hadn't experienced it yet. In fact, I was too young, but I know women in my family were talking like that, right? It was just like, I'm trying to think. It was just like when I first heard about sexual abuse. The idea that an adult could violate a child wasn't even I wasn't even I couldn't even process the concept. What are you talking about? It's just certain things, and when people say them or they reveal to you, you don't understand. Um, I'm trying to think what else. The idea. I don't know if I ever told this story. Um, I'll tell the story. Years ago, right? When I was a young man, again, I grew up, family, went into the nation where you're taught basically to defend the women with your life, right? The idea that men would violate women was a foreign concept. And just like the idea that grown adults would violate children, the idea that men would violate women was a foreign concept. It didn't. I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think. Was there any? I don't know how old I was when that movie came out. Like, there was a movie called The Accused. It came out. I think that was the 80s. It came out a long time ago. Where a bunch of crackers had violated this woman and everything. Like that idea was like, oh my god, why would anybody do that? When I had a sister that I knew at college. No, oh man, and this was so crazy because things happen in groups. So there was a sister I knew at college. I met, very attractive sister, dark skin, very nice. Um, a situation came about where she was violated by some guy on campus, right? 1988. Is that The Accused, brother? I don't think I saw it when it first came out, though. I don't think I saw it till later, um, but she was violated on campus, and the idea that that could happen, we're we're all black school, we're all black people. You know what I'm saying? Like the concept of doing this and no one really, like other men not wanting to kill the people who did it, was a foreign idea to me. Like I could not in that moment process it, and she didn't tell everybody. I just happened to be, I may have been the only person she told. But then a story gets around about her saying something different. But I knew from her reaction that she was telling the truth and what had taken place. I but I was hundreds of miles from home, hundreds of miles from my crew, and probably for the better, because if I had been home, the type of people I was around would have definitely wanted to deal with that situation in a manner that, you know, not conducive to long life and good health for somebody involved. And then it was so insane because later, that same, like a year later or 2 years later, sometime in that time frame, a sister that I went to high school with told me about a similar situation. So now, this stuff it's hitting personally, you know. While I was away at school, this had happened. And she wouldn't tell, of course, she wouldn't tell me who the guy was. She told me that happened. She told me some details. She wouldn't tell me who it was. And she didn't tell me who it was because she already knew. She tell me who it is. Call me and a couple of my boys. We're gonna find him. We're gonna talk to him. The way men talk to men when somebody has violated and been completely wrong. Right? Why am I telling the story? I'm telling the story because these are the things that were happening to our sisters when I was in college, which means, as I always say, everything is worse. So even though I have issues with things our sisters say sometimes to black men, I think that things our sisters do, I cannot ignore my own experience of seeing the things that Negroes have done to our women that we have not beheaded people for. I can never, because I know I'm not the only, like, this is not my personal experience where sisters just run up and tell me that this stuff happened to them. That's not the case. Right? So, as much as I would like to complain about certain things, there's still the fact that the root of a lot of problems is Negroes running rampant in the community. So the choice is one of two things. As men, again, this is a man thing. This is something we got to do. We either have to take on the Herculean task of attempting to reverse the psychology and remove and clean up the entire black community, all 50, 60 million people, or B, begin to build here or elsewhere, because the or elsewhere is always an option, because the older I get, the better the or elsewhere looks to me. An environment where these things don't take place, and if they do, we can handle them in a way that men handle problems, right? And those are that's it. Those are the choices at hand. Sister Nina says we need solutions. We can't continue to focus on our problems. Where do we go from here, or where do we start? Well, normally I would have an answer, but one of the things I'm weighing, right, and have been for a good 6 months, this COVID thing has kind of, some people say that they called this the Great Reset before they did it. Greetings, Brother Dessalines. We have to, not when I say we, like those who've been in this mission and been doing this thing, we have to figure out what organizing looks like in the 21st century in the age of COVID, in the age of will you be able to travel freely? Will you be able to do commerce? Will you be able to? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like everything is different now. The answer I would have gave you, Sister Nina, in 2019 may not be practical in 2021, which is why I can't quite answer the question because organizing is different now, right? Depending on where you are in the country, depending on where you are in the country, you can organize at a certain percentage of people. You can't organize with any people. They talk about arresting people for having parties and all. It where you are in the country determines what you can even do. So it makes it like the foundation of what we do is starts with self-education, which everybody here has already started that process. Else you probably wouldn't be listening to me. That's the foundation. The next step becomes kind of what we're doing here with is kind of almost virtual organizing. The third step would be in place organizing. And what does that look like? And is that something where will it become something that can't be done here in the States? I mean, I can't answer that question because I can kind of see where they're going with things, but I can't be 100% sure. And then, of course, just because you go somewhere else don't mean that the problem doesn't follow you. I mean, I'm being completely honest as I can. Amilcar Cabral said something to the fact of claim no easy victories and tell the people no lies. So, since Vanessa says right, and we must talk about the crap some black dudes have done because a lot of what women are doing is reactionary. Yeah, no question, no question. And much as we don't want to admit it, the problem didn't start yesterday. Like I said before, you start going back to, and I mean, the Europeans' reaction to the Black Power movement, we never really discussed. We just talk about COINTELPRO, but we don't talk about COINTELPRO, Memorandum 46, crack, AIDS. We don't talk about all those things in context of all of those things being together, wave after wave after wave of attack, right? And it just so happened that now, just old enough that most of it I lived through. Right? So most of it I lived through. And what I found out, I think we were talking about this earlier today, I think. But what I realized is that I lived through it. But someone 30 years old either didn't live through it or wasn't old enough to remember it, so they can't even make the connection. So there's many times where I feel like in a way that kind of either addressing stuff that's old or how can I put it? I'm doing like remedial stuff. But what I realize is that at least as far as recent historical events, these things aren't as clear in people's minds as I often think. And that there are people who are now grown who either were young or weren't even alive when certain things took place, right? So, for example, I was born after Martin Luther King was killed. So I had to get the information from people of what it was like with the riots and things like that because I wasn't alive. Somebody that's 20, grown adult, basically, almost. But I had to tell them about the Million Man March. They weren't alive. I had to tell people about Amos Wilson because He's been gone for 25 years now, right? I have to tell people about Dr. Khaled. He's been gone for 20 years. It's just, it's part of the work. But one of the things that we have to do, and I'm going to get off here in 15 minutes or less because I actually did not plan to be on this long. And our wonderful producer says, hit the Cash App, please. And our sister Nina Teller says, even though you may not be able to answer directly, but the discussion is on the table, so forums like this is much needed. Thank you for addressing it, brother. Oh, no problem. Because I'm trying. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm just speak for me. I can't speak for other people, spokesmen, leaders, or whatever they may be, including those in Straight Black Pride. I'm trying to see through a murky, battlefield. Like, I know what the Europeans trying to do in certain cases, but this 19 has been a game changer in a way that it gives them an excuse to lock down almost anything they want. And then they've taken to taking people off social media and the different apps and stuff, and so much stuff has changed. The European has really changed their methodology. They have not changed their ideology, but they changed their methodology. And the hats have made a play that they made a play so bold that I didn't see coming, and I didn't until I started doing the research. Who's who? Who's Fauci and Gates and all these people. It's just certain things that I didn't make connections to before it happened. It is what it is. That's one that it's one of the reasons why Black people need think tanks, because other people have think tanks and they're making moves and thinking of ways to do things that they want to do, and we have to do that. We have to have think tanks. We have to have not just individuals, but collectives of Black people who think their way through these problems, because we're, to a large degree, we've been out-thought as much as we've been out-organized or out-fought. That is a large degree what is taking place. And Kind Ranger says, a good book I just read was Wake Up and Rise Up Sisters, The Voice of a Black Woman by Ife Asada Fatui, out of Baltimore. Right. You're right. Her husband is brother Imhotep out of Baltimore. Kind Ranger, correct me if I am wrong. Have not read that book, but those people are solid. So, and Unique One Express says that's an excellent book. So there it is. You have your recommendation. So, again, be on the lookout for. I only actually seen one person say that they would actually want to hear a afternoon live stream. So I'll take that into consideration. Kind Ranger says Urugus have tons of think tanks. Absolutely. I'm here in DC, so I know a lot of these. You ever come to DC and you go downtown, you just see a lot of just regular looking buildings, and you don't know who is in it or what they're doing. Lawyers, lobbyists, and think tanks. They're all over DC. And you'll have no idea unless even if they put the name on the building, you won't have no idea unless you actually have studied some of the stuff and know who some of these people are. And they have people that represent various interests. and we have, very few of those that have the ear of people in power, and the ones that do, they do more listening than talking, and do more following instructions, certainly than giving instructions. So um, they don't serve our interests, and it's just, it is what it is. Um, so, like I said, be on the lookout for the flyer tomorrow. I'm gonna call them tomorrow afternoon. Now that I've given them the right information, because I was the one to mess that up. And on the videos and streams that will be released, the uh, Eventbrite information for the Dr. Welsing Day stream and lecture will be available. And if anything changes, I will let everyone know, um, you know, as soon as possible. And our wonderful producer says sign up for OTWTube.com. Please do that. Sign if you haven't signed up for OTWTube. And you also can listen at on the wakeupradio.com. And she said you can follow me on OTWTube, which I need to get over there and put some content over there because I haven't been over there lately. I'm not gonna lie, as much as I enjoy interacting with you all, there are times where takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental energy to do these sometimes, you know. But today's a good day. I thought we had a good discussion. Um, I still, I gotta figure out when. I gotta figure out if brothers are willing to do it. I know that I had talked about having a discussion with brothers and sisters could ask questions. Um, I still want to do that, but I gotta get some brothers that are willing to come on. Because once the Straight Black Pride logo goes up, it can be detrimental to your employment. It is what it is. Sister Kind Ranger says the Harvest Institute is pushing for us to support black ownership of a southern high speed train system. Okay. Wow. I had no idea. I hadn't heard anything about that. Um, if you have a website, I think, well, no, you changed your, what's name. So I guess you can't put a link. But if you post about it or send me an article or something in the Instagram so I can check it out, at least hear what's going on with that because I hadn't heard anything about that. So, with that, brothers and sisters, again, I thank you all for tuning in, supporting, as brother says, donating. Um, right now the focus is on upgrading the technology for the streams. We've upgraded the camera, we've upgraded the sound. So the last thing is to upgrade the computer, and then we will be where we need to be as far as technology goes. So, again, I thank you all. Okay, you said you forwarded to me. Okay, cool. Um, you'll hear from me sometime this week, whether it's Saturday. I might do a Saturday and Sunday, maybe Friday and Sunday, something like that. But y'all hear from me, and I'll post it on the Instagram and the Twitter. And with that, I'll say a BB for Hodie and straight black pride.